9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
Like many beginnings, Legacy of Healing had a humble one. While the organization's first trip was in 2004, its roots date back much earlier. Almost 100 years ago, Samuel Weiss and his wife traveled to Peru and became missionaries. Samuel served communities all over the country, often venturing deep into the jungle to reach underserved populations. Samuel and his wife had 3 children, and they were all raised in the mission field. Samuel's oldest daughter, Mafi, became a nurse. She had 3 children, Gary, Lisa, and Steve. The stories of Grandpa Sam's missionary adventures fascinated the youngsters and infused them with a desire to continue their grandfather's legacy of helping those in need, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Gary became a worship leader and financial administrator. Lisa became a nurse, and Steve became a surgeon. In 2004, the 3 siblings and their mother decided to carry on their grandfather's legacy of healing and embarked on their maiden mission trip to Guatemala. In the 15 years since that first mission, the organization has grown tremendously. Hundreds of volunteers have joined Legacy and helped to lead the organization with Mafi and her 3 children. Medical schools have partnered with Legacy to give resident physicians exposure to challenging cases. Legacy has performed over 2,000 operations in 10 different countries. In 2006, Legacy began offering medical services and has treated over 11,000 medical patients since then. Legacy started sponsoring economic development initiatives in 2012 and has provided over 2,200 people with sustainable clean water in 4 different countries. For its 2019 trip, Legacy of Healing partnered with the mission at Natuvu Creek in Fiji, a similar organization dedicated to caring for underserved populations. The key to a successful mission trip involves the 3 Ps: planning, planning, and more planning. While careful planning keeps many preventable issues from occurring, a good rule of thumb for any mission worker is to expect more than one thing to go wrong. During this trip, many of the Legacy team members were held up in customs, and the authorities demanded that Legacy of Healing pay extra fees in order to proceed. Fortunately, some paperwork and negotiation convinced them to let the team through. When the Legacy team members arrive at the hospital, the first thing that they have to do is unpack all of the equipment, organize all of the supplies and medication, and troubleshoot any problems that may arise. For example, within the first 10 minutes, the surgical team discovered that Legacy's American anesthesia machines will not connect properly with Natuvu Creek's British-configured oxygen tanks. Not to worry though, the hallmark of a Legacy team member is problem-solving skills.
Trying to do the best we can with what we got. I apologize.
The post-op nursing team carefully plans the recovery process to ensure that patients will be recovered as quickly as possible in order to prevent the operating room from losing valuable capacity. The anesthesia team and the surgeons work together to ensure that all equipment is functioning properly and all supplies are stocked. The goal of any mission trip surgical unit is to serve as many patients as possible and focus on the patients that have the most critical needs. These include anything that is life-threatening and anything that limits dexterity and mobility, both of which greatly affect an individual's ability to work and be productive. Prior to Legacy's arrival, the team at Natuvu Creek alerts communities on the island and surrounding islands that a team of surgeons is coming on a mission. Legacy physicians and nurses screen each patient that makes the long journey to Natuvu Creek to determine if they are a suitable candidate for surgery. Some of the patients don't speak English, which can be problematic. After the surgical team screens the patients and schedules them for surgery, a Natuvu Creek medical doctor examines the patient as well to make sure that no critical information was missed in the surgical examination and confirms a patient's candidacy for surgery. One of the most difficult things that Legacy clinicians have to do is turn patients away. Some patients have problems that either cannot be corrected by surgery or require advanced equipment that is only available in large hospitals. The surgical team also has to constantly monitor the operating room's capacity as patients are scheduled. The patients with the most urgent needs must be prioritized. This man hasn't been able to smell for years. Large polyps have interfered with his sense of smell. Unfortunately, the procedure would require endoscopic equipment that isn't portable or housed in any hospital close by. The Legacy team has to tell him that there's nothing that they can do for him. This gentleman suffers from a Hodgkin's lymphoma. This type of cancer cannot be corrected with surgery, but it can be cured through chemotherapy. Dr. Steve informs the patient that he can't help him, which is never easy news to hear. This woman suffers from a thyroid disorder, which causes severe swelling in her neck. Unfortunately, the surgery to correct this disorder is extremely complicated and requires an inpatient hospital with an advanced nursing team. Because Legacy of Healing does not have the proper resources, they are forced to turn this patient away. While Legacy of Healing's surgical team is hard at work screening patients and preparing for an avalanche of operations, Chief Financial Officer Gary and Natuvu Creek's leadership team explore the island in search of possible clinic sites. Unlike Legacy's surgical service line, which entails invasive procedures that improve patients' ability to function, the medical service line focuses on non-invasive care, including prevention, education, and pharmacological treatment for a wide array of ailments, such as parasites, respiratory problems, and skin disorders. The medical team has also partnered with several countries' state health departments in administering vaccines to remote communities.
We have to balance the amount of travel time that we're able to go deeper, farther away in order to have a greater intervention. Certainly the more remote locations have greater need for healthcare intervention, things that we can provide that will make their lives better. And so we have to balance that with a reasonable amount of travel time that we're asking our team to go.
The village residents welcome our team into their homes with warm hospitality. Each village is ruled by a chief and a headman. The chief is ordained through a dynastic bloodline, while the headman is elected by members of the village. The Natuvu leaders introduce Gary to the headman of each village. Gary then asks if Legacy could use the village's school facilities for a medical clinic. The headman quickly answers that the village would be happy and grateful to have Legacy of Healing set up a clinic in their village. their only request is that they are notified in advance so that they can prepare and alert surrounding villages of the clinic's time and location. Gary asks the villagers what common medical ailments they suffer from the most. Their answers highlight a common theme that Legacy of Healing team members have encountered in developing countries across the world. They all say diabetes, high blood pressure, and dental problems. Unfortunately, those health conditions are all chronic health issues that require long-term prevention through lifestyle modification, which consists of exercise, proper nutrition, abstinence from smoking and alcohol, and basic dental hygiene. A toothbrush is a luxury to many native Fijians. Legacy of Healing can teach them how to brush their teeth and how to avoid sugarcane. But what good will that do if the island's natives don't have toothbrushes? Cultural practices can also perpetuate chronic health problems. Kava, a Fijian cultural staple, is a drink derived from a root. Kava, like alcohol, has strong sedative effects and can pose health problems. An American telling a Fijian to not drink kava is like a Frenchman telling an American to not watch football. Legacy of Healing works hard to be sensitive to host countries' cultural practices while still attempting to serve the country's peoples.
Maybe the misconception is that we know what's best for the community, where they have, of course, this is their way of life. And so there certainly is, there has to be an openness from the community that we're coming because we care and we want to help them have a better life and a better outcome. That we are not coming presenting ourselves as having a better way of life for them that they need to accept. And if we don't spend the time for them to share our ideas and for them to embrace change, then it's not going to be a long-term solution.
The first day of surgery is always a bit chaotic. The facility only has one operating room. The surgical team cleverly partitions the one operating room into 3 rooms. The volume of cases that Legacy will complete today is much higher than the clinic is typically used to. That means a large number of people working in a very small space. Before the Legacy team kicks into gear, the staff of Natuvu Creek wished us good luck with a beautiful song. Each patient's journey begins with the intake process. Legacy nurses and physician assistants check in each patient, take their vital signs, and send them to the pre-op station, where patients are prepped for surgery and IVs are started. This process sounds simple enough, but the high volume of patients makes it challenging. Furthermore, many patients that didn't show up to be screened come to the clinic the day of surgery and request to be seen. Because Legacy is dedicated to serving those with the most urgent needs, our providers see the patients, but it presents major logistical challenges for the intake team and the surgical team.
For me personally, one of the biggest challenges is language. I'm not bilingual, so I depend on an interpreter. So you have to trust that interpreter, and it still is challenging. So my first concern was language. Second one is environment. You don't know what you're getting into. We learn each time. You bring different equipment. My first mission trip, I didn't have a blood pressure cuff with me because I didn't know I needed one. So equipment. You don't know what the facility's like. You're used to having certain things at certain standards in the U.S. You always have suction and oxygen and emergency equipment and emergency personnel. You don't have that. So you need to be flexible and imaginative. Think outside the box while you still provide safe care to your patients.
Once patients are prepped and ready for surgery, they're taken to the operating room. The anesthesia team sedates the patient, and then the surgical team preps the surgical site for the operation. The narrow space and high number of bodies make preserving each site's sterile field difficult. Strong communication and awareness are required in order for everything to run smoothly. Because resources are scarce and certain specialized surgical supplies are not available, the team has to get creative in order to accommodate all of the operations, including last-minute add-ons that weren't planned for during screening.
It's kind of funny when you don't have all your special equipment, you just come up with ways to do things.
Right.
You know, and we had on a previous mission trip, we worked on a little girl who, when she was about 2, she fell onto an open cooking fire and she burned her arm and her side. And then because she didn't have care, they fused together and healed. So she spent like 5 years with her arm fused. It was just soft tissue.
Mm-hmm.
So we got her and we just opened that up and then reclosed it, but we didn't have any kind of a drain. So, you know, you've got all this empty space. We had to make a closed suction drain. So we rigged this thing up with a syringe and a spring and kind of got it, and it worked fine. So it's just, you got to kind of take what you have and make it work.
Being able to ask how far people travel from. And because sometimes we see patients that travel from such a long distance, and in the back of our mind, we don't ask. You know, but I think sometimes it's worth knowing, especially for a trip like this where we don't have the capability of housing some of the patients here. You know, you have people that travel sometimes 8 to 10 hours by bus, and they don't have a place to stay, and they expect you to do their surgery in a timely manner and for them to catch the next bus out.
Challenges in the mission field are we are working with limited supplies and limited resources, and we have to figure out how to make it work on using the supplies and resources that we have. So sometimes that means using things in a different way than we're typically using them back in the States, or creating supplies, which is what we've done in the past as well. But either way, it always works. We make it work.
We have a saying in the OR, you get what you get and don't throw a fit, because we have very limited things. So back home, of course, we have whatever we want and as much as we want, but here we're pretty limited.
You're so used to a controlled environment when you're in a normal operating room setting. And here, you don't always know what's coming in. And you really have to be flexible with your supplies, with your schedule, with everything, so you can meet the needs as many as you possibly can, because we really do not like to turn anybody away.
After the operations are completed, patients wake up and realize that their lives have been fundamentally changed for the better. Painful tumors and growths that prevented patients from being able to work or to get a job have been removed. Excruciating hernias, often brought on by intense physical labor, are repaired. Facial deformities and scars are corrected, which provide people with confidence and, sadly, in many cases, make it possible for them to find a spouse. Scars that prevented mobility are altered to allow for enhanced productivity and a better quality of life. Young children's extra fingers and extra toes are removed, which gives them confidence and relief from bullying. Circumcisions are performed on young boys, which lower STD rates, decrease the likelihood of cancer, and lead to better overall reproductive hygiene. Most of the Legacy of Healing team members participate in multiple mission trips. There's something about mission service that keeps them coming back for more. Humanitarian service doesn't just entail great benefits to those being served. It also involves great rewards for the people that are serving others.
It is really good to give, sometimes better than to receive, but when you give and somebody appreciates it, they give back to you. So you get to be on the receiving end of that appreciation, and sometimes it's like it is life changing. You know, it allows you to get a bigger perspective on life and a bigger appreciation. So it ends up being a win-win. This is my third mission. Every mission trip I've been to, I truly, I truly keep being amazed how much more I'm impacted by the sheer appreciation and by how the people that you go to assist, how they give back to you in the way they show the appreciation. That it just moves me every time.
I feel honored that the people trust us enough to actually hand over their babies and themselves to let us put them to sleep and do surgery, whereas, you know, I don't know that I can do that with somebody back home. So I feel honored that they trust us and grateful that I can serve the people. And when I come to see what these people have and what I have at home, I'm grateful for what I have. I'm grateful that I can be part of Legacy of Healing, because it's awesome.
I love the feeling of fulfillment I get from these trips. There's nothing like helping somebody that doesn't want or need anything from you other than that help, and they can't give you anything but thanks in return, and that's very satisfying.
It's difficult to say I come because I really want to serve, but I come for that reason, obviously, but for the joy that I get from these people that have little to nothing, but they have joy. And that's so remarkable, because I think they really know what's of value. Their life is immeasurably harder than ours, but they don't view it that way. And they're incredibly joyous, grateful, thankful. That fills my bucket as much as any of the work that we do. Is their spirit is just amazing, and it's contagious.
It gives you like really great perspective on how things are elsewhere, and you should never take for granted how good we have it in the States. You know, that's definitely one thing. And then just how grateful people are. You know, a lot of times, you know, people that we provide care for at home, it's almost like they feel entitled. And here, nobody feels like that. On a mission trip, when you come and you provide someone care, you fix their problem, they are the most grateful people ever. And it just feels good.
Well, I think it's a good way to give back for, you know, what God has blessed you. So you in turn, it's your obligation to give back something to the people who need it and who would otherwise not be able to get the care that they are receiving.
You know, they say, you know, you enjoy the fact that you're helping somebody. We make a difference in these people's lives. Things that we take for granted in the U.S., a hernia repair, which is done so often and so simple, isn't done here. And sometimes that prevents a man from working and providing for his family. That's life-changing. To have a cleft palate or a cleft lip on a little girl, if that's never repaired, she'll never get married or have a family or live a normal life. We do things that are life-changing, and for that, you know, it makes you feel good, but they are just so appreciative. Every country I've gone to, the people have been loving, have been warm, have been thankful, you know, and aren't looking to get something from us, or not looking, they are just wanting help to make their lives better, and we can do that. I also enjoy the family that has developed with the people that come on the mission trips. It's become a second family. I may only see these people once a year, but you fall right back into the same relationships. So, you know, I enjoy the relationships that we have built as a team, you know, that bonding that's come together.
Extending healing and hope to those in need is only half of Legacy's mission. The other half involves mentoring and training future mission workers. Many physicians, nurses, hospital administrators, and other healthcare professionals joined Legacy as high schoolers or college students. Their experiences inspired them to devote their lives to healing others.
The next challenge is preparing the next generation, whether it's teaching resident physicians or in mentoring for mission, it's for showing young people who might be interested in missions, whether their healthcare interests include nursing and medicine or really anyone. So giving them an experience where they can get a taste for what mission work is like can be a valuable starting place, because then for some of them that will be the best glimpse that they get into what medicine is like, what nursing is like, what being a PA or a dentist is like. So they can get that experience with us where they get to see with some hands-on experience what those kind of fields are like, and also what the dream of missions can be. So we feel that with the experience that we've had, showing young people a glimpse of service, that then maybe they can be the ones to carry the torch for the next generation. And they will be the next group of mission leaders, healthcare providers that go to new frontiers.
90 years after Samuel Weiss journeyed to Peru to serve those in need, his daughter, Mafi, continues to carry the torch of mission that her father lit. Samuel's legacy of healing became Mafi's legacy of healing, which became her children's legacy of healing. The hundreds of legacy volunteers look up to her as the mother figure of the organization, an identity that she embodies wholeheartedly.
The experiences that my father would tell us after each time that he went on some trip, either to the Amazon River or some of the other tributaries, or to the Altiplano where he visited the indigenous people. Those stories became so interesting to us growing up that it really inspired us to want to be of service as well. I always wanted to be a nurse, and as I was growing up, I decided I wanted to be a missionary nurse. Well, I became a nurse, but about going to the mission field, it just didn't happen. But then after several years, and my children were already grown and had their own families, and Legacy of Healing came to being, it was such a wonderful experience for me. Such a satisfying thing to see our children working together, serving the people of Guatemala. That was the very first trip that I went on. And I thought, what else would be something that would provide such a blessing to me to serve the people of a country that was, these people that were in such needs, and to see our children serving them. I never expected our son Steve and our daughter Lisa to working together, one across the other in the surgery, and I'd be watching them do this. I just never expected such a beautiful and such, I don't know even what to call it, such satisfying experience. Well, as time went on, we were able to organize into the organization that is now the Legacy of Healing, and the group has grown considerably, and it is my passion. My passion, and when we go on a trip, we're preparing for it, go on the trip, come home, and we're thinking about the next trip. It's just something that we think of almost all the time. It's been such a blessing for me, and I am so happy that our children have enjoyed participating. Our grandchildren have all participated at least once, and it has been something that I really thank the Lord for providing this way that we could be of service to those in need.
The foundation of Legacy of Healing, which Samuel Weiss laid down almost 100 years ago, has stood the test of time. We invite you to become part of our legacy and carry the torch of mission into the future. Great things are possible when a group of people are dedicated to healing the least of these and believe in the power of healing service. That belief is our legacy of healing.